from Asia's first media university, India's oldest and largest media university, and this beautiful city of lakes, Bhopal, where I would like to invite all of you. Once the lockdown or COVID scenario gets over, it's indeed a great honor for me. I've been to Mysore a couple of times, but more as a tourist. And I hope that once the lockdown and the COVID situation gets over, I would be able to visit the prestigious university, pay my tributes to the department set up by Dr. Nadik Krishnamurthy, and also meet all of you. Dr. Niranjan and the esteemed faculty members, resource persons, research scholars, and dear students. And I am told that there are participants from other departments and other universities also. My greetings to all of them. Congratulations on your Golden Jubilee series, and also for organizing a very relevant webinar. I would like to share my perspective, having been a media educator also, though I was a journalist. I began as a practicing journalist, but alongside I also taught. In fact, I've been teaching at IMC for the last 25 years. I've been an adjunct professor at Makhanlal for the last 2 decades. So this has also been simultaneously because of my passion for teaching. I've been teaching at JNU, Delhi University, and other places. So media education is something very close to my heart. And when I decided to hang my boots in hardcore media, I decided to switch over to media education rather than any other related field. Media education cannot be seen in isolation, unlike other education. As Dr. Niranjana put it, quoting the then Vice Chancellor, that how can media be taught? Similarly, can we isolate media education from media? Difficult, impossible. Any development in media would have an impact on media education. We are celebrating this year 100 years of media education in India. What began as an effort, a small effort by Dr. Annie Besant. Today, hundreds of universities and colleges are teaching media education. And we are churning out thousands of students every year. But the biggest challenge for me is when my students go to, whichever institution I've been associated with, when they go to the industry, the people in the industry tell me that, or the students come back and tell me that we are told to forget whatever we have learned and to learn things anew. Why? There is a disconnect. I was addressing one of the most prestigious lectures of the Rajasthan Patrika group, and I met their management and editors, and they told me over lunch that, Professor Suresh, one, they are not aware of harsh realities of the industry. Two, that the standard of language is deteriorating by the day. And it is not just about English language or Hindi, any language. So for me, the first two challenges, if you ask me, is to bridge the gap between industry and academia. That is the biggest challenge. What is the answer? Well, the most easiest answer that I am given always is that let us bring in industry people to academia. Let them come and teach. Generally, what is happening is that we are getting people from the industry who have either retired from the industry or who are not getting jobs in the industry anymore. So there is a gap of a couple of years between them and the industry. They look at it more as a source of income and they come and teach your students. They are doing their best. I have nothing against them. But the student should be knowing what is actually happening currently in the industry in terms of content, in terms of technology, in terms of ethics. That is where the big question comes. There are occasions when my students call me up and tell me, "Sir, this is what you had taught, but that's not what is being practiced." So I told them recently there was an interview in which I said it was conducted by Journalism and Mass Communication Hub. They had interviewed me. And I told them that, I cannot, if ethics are not being followed in the industry, I cannot be teaching them that. My job is to teach them ethics. Because perhaps some of them are not being practiced today. But when we teach the Constitution, that doesn't mean that the entire Constitution is being implemented in the right spirit everywhere. We know implementation of the Constitution is the ideal situation. But is it being followed in letter and spirit? No. Does it mean that we stop teaching the Constitution? I think the same holds true for media law and ethics. Yes, some of those norms, ethics are being violated and they are not being taught. They are not being practiced. But we should instill that deep in our students so that tomorrow, when they attain a certain position, they are at least able to bring about those changes. If today I am able to do a little bit, some of those things Dr. Sapna mentioned, whether at IIMC or Makhanlal, like at IIMC I got the letter of intent for it to be deemed to be university. I set up the language, I gave a major push to language journalism. Now these are ideals that I have always nourished. There were values which were inculcated to me when I was a student of media. And perhaps during industry days, some of those ideals could not take shape. But when I got an opportunity, I tried to give shape to some of them. And that is what idealism does. In the short term, it may not immediately, if you are a cub reporter, maybe you may not be able to follow those norms. You may be expected to deliver within certain deadlines. You may be expected to work for TRP. But that doesn't mean that tomorrow when you are in a senior position, you cannot do certain things. You may be able to, at that time, get stories done which are relevant to the downtrodden, the poor, the underprivileged. You should make an effort to become the voice of the voiceless. These are ideals that we should be cherishing. So that part is, but how we teach it, that is a big challenge. There is the disconnect. The disconnect is because we talk about industry people coming to academia, but we never talk about people in the academia going to the industry. I believe it is high time. I know this is a statement which will be widely debated. But if senior editors can come to media institutions and teach, why cannot there be a partnership wherein senior faculty members can also go and work in the industry for some time? Why is it that I only have an MOU with Mysore University? Why don't Mysore University has an MOU with the Deccan Herald? Or me with Dainik Bhaskar? Why can't we have that kind of an MOU? Why are we only, when we talk about MOUs, why should it only be between academic organizations or institutions, and why not between academic institutions and industry bodies? So that let it be an exchange program. Let our young faculty members go and do some actual reporting, ground reporting. Let some senior journalists come back to school, revisit the principles that they had studied decades back. Let them sit in the classrooms and let us sit in the newsrooms. I think that kind of an exchange is required for bridging this gap. Because without a strong theoretical foundation, you cannot have a democratic and vibrant media. So I have a problem with those people who say that media is only about hands-on practice. What has media got to do with the theories? If you don't understand the history of the media, if you don't understand the principles of media, the objectives of media, if you don't understand the constitution, if you don't understand the right to information laws, if you don't understand the IPC and CRPC and the laws related to media in this country, I don't expect you to be a successful journalist. If you only know how to run a camera, if you know only how to edit a package, if that's all you know, then I have a problem. I also have a problem because we in media education are liberally using the term citizen journalism. Please remove that word from your curricula. By using that term freely and liberally, you are recognizing a trend which ultimately leads to the position that you need not skill yourself. You don't need a training in media. Anybody who can write anything, anybody who can use a camera, anybody who knows social media can become a journalist. I often ask this question, have you ever heard of the term citizen doctor? Have you ever heard of the term citizen engineer or a citizen chartered accountant? If you cannot be a citizen doctor, how can you be a citizen journalist? You can be a citizen communicator. You can be a citizen content creator. But journalist? No. Journalism is an art. Journalism is a science. And at least we in media education should be very clear about it. The moment we give recognition to the term citizen journalist, that anybody and everybody can become a journalist, we are delegitimizing ourselves. Why should we be running these courses? If anybody and everybody without any training can become a journalist. No, journalism has become highly skilled today. And it's not just about technology. I'm sorry, today I see this very, very dangerous trend that we have become so much technology driven that I sometimes wonder whether we are creating technocrats or are we creating journalists are we grooming journalists? We should be very clear that we are going to groom journalists, not technologists. So much of emphasis on technology that we are forgetting the content part. I have always maintained that content was, content is, and content will always remain the king, queen, prince, princess. Technology, even a 5-year-old child today can use a mobile phone better than you and me. It can unlock. It can edit videos. A child can. Today they are doing it. They are already into coding without any training. The next generation is totally wired. They know how to, it comes naturally to them. They take to smartphones like fish to water. Can you beat them at that? I can't. I always used to say that, that like you divide history into two parts, BC and AD, before Christ and Anno Domini. Similarly, I have always divided media into two parts, BG and AG, before Google and after Google. I belong to the before Google generation. I used to write manually, I used to type QWERT. That is how I got my initial training. Dr. Mamta is laughing. I am sure she also did the same. And so that is how we learnt. And then we shifted to the computers. I remember using the pager. I remember using the heavy, Motorola sets. I had gone to cover the Kachal in Andaman and Nicobar Islands. We had gone to cover the first millennium sunrise. That was 2001, January 1. I was in Kachal off the Andaman and Nicobar Islands 21 years back. And at that time I used a satellite phone which was so heavy, But today, I remember as a television journalist running around, running after VVIPs with those heavy tripods and cameras. My cameraman would run, tripod I used to run. That is the way we used to, catch up with the VVIPs. And today, in the best of television channels, the reporters are provided with just a smartphone. And you are expected to report, edit, transmit, do live, and even use social media using the smartphone. Mojo, mobile journalism. That's come of age now. Now in this scenario, technology certainly has become important. Drones are being used today in isolation spots, hotspots, containment zones. I've seen it being used extensively in Jagannath Puri during the Rath Yatra. Does it mean that drone is a technology? But the commentary of the Rath Yatra has to be given by an individual who should know the history of the Rath Yatra, who should know the story behind the Rath Yatra, who should know about Jagannatha, Balabhadra, Subhadra. Without knowing that, no technology, no animation, nothing will work. The content is important. So the emphasis has to be on content creation. Today, the traditional jobs may not be there. But good content will always be in great demand. And today the world is looking for good content creators. We should promote creativity in our media education. We should move beyond the 5 W's and 1 H. We should encourage our students to look beyond the prism of politics, economics, and sports. Today, the world is looking for customized content. I would like to see a whole new generation which should be talking on environmental issues, on wildlife, on food, on cinema, about the villages. At Makhanlal, from this year I am starting 2 courses. One is film journalism. I am not talking about film production, cinema studies, no. Film journalism. Because what I see everywhere is just gossip, rumors, scandals and film promotions. That's film journalism. How to appreciate a good film? What is happening at the global stage? Where are these stories? Why good scripts are not coming? Why are we all going for biopics? These are stories that we should be looking at, and only a good film journalist can do that. So we are starting this course from our Khandwa campus. Khandwa is the birthplace of Kishore Kumar. From our Riva campus, we are starting a program in rural journalism. Today, there is a huge demand for rural communicators. NGOs are working, huge corporates, FMCG majors, they are all shifting to the rural areas and they need good communicators. Nobody is willing to go there. Dealing with rural areas is a different ball game. It's not urban-centric journalism. We need to groom that. It is not enough that we just, talk about it. We lament that, you can count on your fingertips people like P. Sainath. We can count on our fingertip newspapers like The Hindu, which used to have a rural affairs editor, which gives coverage to rural and agricultural areas. Are we grooming them? Is the big challenge before media educators. Today, with the pandemic, there is a huge demand for reliable, trustworthy information related to health. I had the privilege, honor of introducing for the first time in India, when I was the Director General at IMC, we designed India's first critical appraisal skills program in public health communication, CASP. This was in collaboration with Thomson Reuters Foundation, UNICEF and Oxford University. We imparted training not only to our faculty members and students, we incorporated it in our syllabus and we trained health journalists from across the country. Something that I am continuing to do after MCU entered into a collaboration with UNICEF in Madhya Pradesh. And we have already started training journalists in evidence-based reporting. Public health is an area which has perhaps for the first time since independence today occupies prime space in newspapers. This was something totally negligible in the media. Health was ignored by the media unless there is a huge scam or there is a death due to negligence. Health used to be underreported like anything in this developing country like ours, where only health and education needs to be focused on. But today, I consider it a silver lining in the dark clouds. I consider it a blessing in disguise that thanks to COVID, today public health has come to occupy the importance that it should have always got. So from the first page to the last page of the newspaper, you will have something related to health, about infrastructural facilities, about primary health care centers, about the impact of course, most of them are related to the COVID. Today, television channel debates are centered around public health communication. There are programs featuring doctors, prime time programs where doctors are being asked questions about a range of issues from black fungus to white fungus to green fungus, you name it. Don't you think when we obtained a letter of intent for a deemed to be university status under the de novo category through UGC for IIMC, one of the courses I got designed and approved by UGC. Unfortunately, it hasn't progressed much after I left, was a master's MA program in public health communication. Public health communication, if we don't have a separate program, at least we should, every media institution should weave it into its curricula. We need good public health communicators. Let us groom, let us train the younger generation to become good public health communicators. Because there is a huge demand. You need people in this era of infodemic, which is as dangerous, if not more, than the pandemic itself. What is required is reliable and trustworthy, credible public health communication, wherein the poorest of the poor, illiterate, semi-literate, everybody can get reliable information related to health, which should be based on evidence-based reporting. That is required. This is the challenge before media education. That can we groom them? Can we ensure that in this race for TRP, we are able to groom sensitized individuals as journalists? Whenever I hear, when people ask me that what are the qualifications to become a good journalist, I say the same things like all of us say. Good language skills, ability to adaptability, curiosity, the curiosity of a cat, all that stuff. But I also tell them that only a sensitive person can be a really good journalist. If he is not sensitive to the needs of the society, the plight of the poor and the downtrodden, he cannot become the voice of the voiceless. And that is the main objective of the media. Let us never, even as we focus on technology, we focus on everything, what is the mission of journalism? To ensure that justice reaches the last person, what Gandhiji referred to as Antyodaya, the person standing in the last line. Are we able to reach them? For me, that is the criteria of journalism. So I may be teaching all kinds of journalism, but let me not forget to teach them this very important aspect. When we talk about, let me now come to language. When we talk about language, again, language journalism is growing in this country like anything. Major television channels are having their language platforms. Digital is investing hugely in languages. And that is why when I was heading IIMC, we started off with, we gave a major push to language journalism. Starting Marathi from our Maharashtra campus, Malayalam from our Kerala campus, and upgrading the Urdu program from a certificate program to a full-fledged postgraduate diploma program from our Delhi campus. Language is the future. I insist even on English journalism students always that if you want to get a feel of the ground, please read at least one language newspaper. So if you are studying in Mysore University in English language, don't just read the Times of India and the Star of Mysore, but also read one Kannada newspaper, a Kannada Prabha or some other newspaper. You should also read alongside to get a feel of what is happening at the ground level, because language journalism speaks about the ground realities far, far better than an English newspaper. An English newspaper has its elitist approach. It caters to a certain audience, more of urban centric. I am not questioning their commitment, but I am just talking about their reach, the target audience. It's a reality. So we need to train our students. Now, when I talk about language, I am not just talking about the different languages, but the style of language, the words used. Today, the language of media, particularly television, has become too aggressive. Perhaps bordering on warmongering. Sometimes you feel that, why are they shouting so much? Aggression has never been the language of media. It may be the language of dictators and despots, but it is not the language of the media. Media has to be sober. Media has to be convincing. Media has to be persuasive. Media has to be compassionate. Media has to be empathetic. That is the language that media should have. The tone and the tenor, that is also part of the language. That is where we should focus on. Of course, the nitty-gritties of the language, the nuances, the appropriateness, the propriety, that is also important. We are getting more and more of our students are using Twitter language in journalism. You see a mix of so many languages. I see it when I read Hindi papers. They are using so many English words which are not required. I am not a purist, but at the same time, I am not somebody who would encourage, that you import where it is not required to be imported. If there are words in local language, they need not be borrowed from other languages. If there is an absence of good words, then okay, I can understand. So, I will give you an example. Railways in Hindi, they use rail. For me, that is fine. Not the extremely Sanskritized Loha Patak Gamini. Now that would be, atrocious. So, I think that something that is simple to understand it is comprehensible to the common man. A newspaper is read not just by the intelligentsia. It is read in the barber shops. It is read in the tea shops. So people of all levels should be able to read, understand, comprehend. Let us not use heavy terminology. Terminology should be simple. We should explain it to them. Media education should also focus on research, because research has been replaced by Google search. There was a time when we used to, go to the newspaper archives, go to the libraries. Today that is not required. Today information is on your fingertips, on your smartphones, on your laptops, on your computer screens. But then we should know the dynamics of this Google also. We should know that what the first search results are not necessarily the genuine search results, but which are there because of search engine optimization. The real research may be in the 50th page. Do you have the patience to go till the 50th page? That is a big question. Media education also means continuous media education. In medicine, they have a program called CME, Continuing Medical Education Program. Doctors continuously upgrade themselves. Media person should also continue to upgrade themselves. And that is where they should go back to the school. Media universities today, after the advent of the national education policy, which talks about academic credit banks, which talks about flexibility in education, which enables a student first to get a certificate after 1 year, diploma after 2 years, a degree after 3 years, and an honors program after 4 years. Let us get back the journalists back to our universities. It is important. That is a big challenge before us. Media education is not just about print media, electronic media, digital media. FICCI KPMG statistics say that there are thousands of vacancies which are coming up in the AVGC sector, animation, visual effects, gaming and comics. That is where the skills are there. Are we grooming our generations for that? Are we grooming our students for that? Today, a successful media person is one who can be multitasker. Can we afford to just groom print reporters separately, television reporters separately? No. We should be grooming multitaskers. Multitasking is the new normal. Anybody who is a multitasker alone can survive. If you are not a multitasker, you cannot. Ultimately, please remember, institutions are not going to matter unless it is a Columbia School of Journalism and stuff like that. Whether somebody is a product of Mysore University or Makhanlal University. When the industry hires you, what they are going to see is that how are you different as an individual student from other candidates. That's all that's going to matter. And it is the student who will have to make that extra effort, and we have to facilitate that as media educators, that they become multi-skilled, they become multitaskers, they become good researchers. Because today the demand is for diversified content. Can they get that content? Can they do that research? Research orientation is required today. That research orientation are we going to give to the media students? Can they do what the pandemic has done? Is that it has brought back investigative journalism, it has brought back ground reporting. Senior most journalists are hitting the field, ground zero, and they are reporting from there. The age of desk reporting is gone. Today, in this cutthroat competition, if you want to carve out a niche for yourself, you should engage in ground reporting. That is what is required. So we need to prepare our students to do ground reporting. They need to hit the ground. Some of the best stories came not from press conferences, not from laboratories, but from cremation grounds and intensive care units. Investigative reporting, right to information based reporting, they are all back with a bang. Due to which many state governments had to revise their statistics because of the investigative reporting. So we need to get back to our fundamental principles of truth, objectivity and accuracy. This is what the challenge before media education is. To focus on research, to focus on right to information, focus on investigative journalism. That is what is required. And last but not the least, because I think I have covered, within the limited time given to me, whatever is possible. But I think it is important that online has made learning a lifelong process. Let us sow those seeds in our students. They should not think that once they get the diploma, that is the end of their education. Today, technology has enabled you through MOOCs courses, through online courses, through Coursera, you name it. You can be on a constant learning curve. Journalism, like other discipline, has to have a constant learning curve. And that is what media educators like you and me should be looking at. At my university, we are setting up a media content production center. Today, the focus is on interdisciplinarity. So a student of medicine can also opt for a choice-based credit course in media. Can I, as a media educator, offer such courses to non-media students also? Also, along with the technology, community radio, podcasts, all the new avenues of technology, it is important that I groom citizens who are socially conscious. That constant engagement with the society has to be there. So at my media university, during the COVID, I encouraged our NSS and NCC volunteers to hit the streets and create awareness about COVID-19. I said, okay, writing for social media and all that is fine. But you should constantly engage with the society. They should also become foot soldiers. Our media students should become foot soldiers in the war against infodemic, misinformation, disinformation, fake content. Let us also groom an army of fact checkers who will, of course, they are youngsters, they will use selfies on their Facebook, but also along with selfies, they should also expose fake content on their social media. This is the kind of training that they should give. Let us, as media departments and universities, like a social work department does social work in the villages. A law department provides legal aid in the villages. Can I and you promote media literacy in the villages, in the schools around us, in the higher educational institutions? Let us create a national movement of media literacy. Friends, I have tried to, based on my own experiences both as a media person and as a teacher, I have tried to put across some practical ideas which I myself am implementing wherever I am. I have tried to share those thoughts with you. I hope some of them might be useful to you, but it is always a pleasure to interact with my fellow media educators, and it was a privilege to address the faculty and research scholars and students at the prestigious University of Mysore. Thank you, Dr. Niranjan. Thank you, Dr. Sapna, for inviting me and giving me a patient hearing. Thank you so much. Namaskar.